Welcome to the Talking Serverless podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Jones, joined today by Filip Pyrek, an AWS Serverless Architect and full-stack TypeScript developer at Purple Technology. They help develop software for FinTech companies, and Filip is an AWS Community Builder as well. How are you doing today, Filip?
Yeah, I'm doing perfect. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to kind of get into this, just right off the back, we're here about mid-year. How has 2021 been so far for you?
I think it has been really good. We've hired a lot of people at Purple Technology, and we are growing even more. And we have some exciting plans. I have moved into a position of the one who is going to build a serverless platform team at Purple Technology. So very exciting stuff coming up.
That's fantastic. And to get into that a little bit more, when it comes to your background and getting into serverless and what you do at Purple Technology, do you mind giving us like a full, timeline about how you got started in tech, how all that stuff kicked off, and then how it got to where you are today?
Yeah, basically, I started like programming when I was like 12, and I was doing some high school projects with friends. And when I was 18, I got a message from Purple Technology where I would like to join them. And I said, okay, I like this. I like FinTech, and it seems very interesting. So I got in at Purple Technology. First, I was probably hired like someone who is going to do the stuff that seniors are tired of. And quickly, it showed up that I know quite a lot of stuff. So back then, I was doing some project of mine, and I used AWS Lambda because it was something new, and it was like 4 years ago. And then when I saw what we are doing at Purple Technology with like serverless applications in Node.js, I was like, okay, let's move to the serverless. Let's try it out, guys. Come on. And that's how it started with serverless, like 4 years ago.
No, that's amazing. And I also saw there was a company you listed that I believe you founded called Inventoris. Is that the way that you pronounce that?
Yeah, that's true. There was an app which was supposed to be like let's say mm, UPS for Steam items. When was there CS:GO back then? People were trading and gambling with all those items there, and we decided with a friend of mine that there is a market opportunity for providing like the basically a payment system, but instead of cash, you would use the items as a transfer medium. So yeah, we developed that, and then we sold that for some bitcoins back then, and that was a really awesome ride. And there we tried AWS and all this kind of stuff, and yeah, that was awesome. And since then, I was also somehow interested in cryptocurrency, etc.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I had I played CSGO for a while, and I had a business playing World of Warcraft and doing like 2v2 carries and stuff. And then I would play with somebody, we would win, and they'd pay me through PayPal and all that. And then switch to CSGO and was doing that whole like, maybe I could be a professional gamer type of thing. But I always loved playing like poker and things like that. And so it's funny, when I was reading your thing and I started reading into the company and what they did and the Steam APIs and all that stuff. I saw the connection back to the CSGO gambling. And I remember playing CSGO and then having the skins and guns and all that stuff, and then putting it onto like a gambling site and then playing, poker and all that stuff for fun. And that's so cool that you're involved in that, and you used serverless way back then to kind of construct some of that stuff, because it was, I'm sure it was very chaotic.
Oh yeah, it was very chaotic, and that's why we left the space basically.
Yep. Awesome. And so was that the first time that you got started with serverless, or how did that correspond to learning like Lambda and all that stuff?
Yeah, the thing was that it was a student's project, so we were trying to find some way how to save money, and serverless was very nice tool for that because you pay only for what you use, and that was exactly what we were looking for back then. Back then, I think we didn't even use any like serverless framework. We had just some scripts which were like zipping and deploying stuff. Yeah, it was wild back then.
That's awesome. And then you said that you started working at Purple Technology around like 18 years old.
Yeah.
How was that? I read on the Purple Technology site. I think I saw you listed there, and they listed you as like one of the youngest people that knows the most about serverless in like Europe or something. So how did that whole journey take place?
Yeah, it was really like amazing. The Purple Technology itself, the company, is sort of a freedom company, so it gives a lot of freedom to people. And because the company was quite small when I joined. Let's say there were like 50 people, and in like the developers were like 4 or 5 people, and that also meant a big big possibility to implement new stuff, change things, etc. So it was really sort of an incubator for our ideas and this kind of stuff. So that really gave me ability to like try stuff and push things which might not go through in other companies. So that was really awesome, and that's how the serverless got in, and now like all our production is running on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing in the note that you sent over was that y'all started in fall of 2017, starting to work with serverless and step functions and all that stuff. And you said that right now you're at like 90% and you're trying to get to 100% total being serverless. How is the challenge of moving a company that maybe was pre-existing, not serverless, to serverless? And what type of things did you encounter?
Yeah, we started using step functions. That was the main main argument when I was trying to push it, because we are in a fintech space and we have a lot of complex business logic, and that's exactly what we are looking for. These we can see the diagrams of the business logic, we can see the different executions in which state they are, and that was the main killer. And type of challenges, let me think. Well, there was a lot of stuff. The main challenge is that we are not able to hire like serverless engineer or serverless developer. We always need to hire like full stack developer, for example, TypeScript developer, and we need to teach him everything. So that's quite a challenging thing in terms of the onboarding and the growth. And also back then we had to learn everything ourselves. Like we didn't have any AWS expert or anything like that. And because I was the one who brought it up, I was the one who was learning, and I love it. I love to like dig deeper into AWS and all the services and thinking like how we can interconnect all the services and stuff. So that was really awesome. Yeah, and we are carrying that on. And the biggest challenge right now is again how to grow in terms of processes, people, and the know-how in terms of serverless.
Yeah, no, I think that that's probably exactly what we're facing too. I think that that's been the hardest thing since Serverless Guru started was how do we hire people in that have enough experience? And we kind of went that same route a lot of times. We're like, okay, if you have a full stack development experience and you've heard about serverless, and if you can pass our code challenge and you can learn how to do some of the stuff that we're doing at that level, you'll be surrounded by people that, will have resources that people can use and plug into. And a lot of times it's just knowing the information exists. And then a lot of times developers know how to pursue it. But yeah, hiring processes, all those things. And it seems like I'm hopeful that now that we're moving into like 2021, middle of the year, that some of these problems around just the number of people in the space that know how to do this stuff is going to keep increasing. And so it'll be easier. But I saw in the note that you said that in 2017, it was a team of 4, and then it went to 15. What was it like? Did you have to convince people to use serverless at the very beginning? Did you have to train people yourself? And how did y'all develop material internally potentially? Like what did that process look like for getting other people on the team, onboarded and scaled up with serverless?
Yeah, basically we as the seniors were convinced that okay, serverless, that's the way we want to go, because we were developers who didn't really want to mess with operations, and we didn't want to hire like any operations guy. So that was also a big thing for us, this zero operations almost, as we discovered later. And Yeah, we had to basically teach everybody like how to approach it. One thing was developing the existing infrastructure or developing on existing infrastructure. That was quite okay and easy. But teaching people like how to design and how to think serverless, that was another challenge, and we are still facing it. And it's about like talking, discussing, explaining all around. And also because of that reason, we started to publish new articles on our blog, which serves on one hand as sort of like PR as for all the companies, but on the other hand, we realized that it's really our internal documentation basically, because those are the resources that our people need because there are a lot of resources for like how to hook a Lambda function to API gateway. But that's like, okay, that's 4 years ago, maybe where we were. But now we are having monorepo, 300 plus Lambdas in one big project, hundreds of thousands of lines of TypeScript code, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we need to figure out how to maintain all that.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. So there's like one thing you said there, which is how to think serverless. Do you mind giving me like an idea and the audience an idea for what does that mean to you? Like when you say think serverless, how could somebody potentially think serverless, or what would it look like if they weren't thinking serverless?
Yeah, I think it's mostly about interconnecting the existing AWS services and keeping in mind that everything should be event driven, and it should eventually be able to scale down to zero. And ideally, everything should be manageable as infrastructure as code. That's the main point for us. We want everything to be infrastructure as code. That's very important.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. That the way that things were done previously. I did a job a while back where I was on an operations team at a gigantic health insurance company, and I was helping them take like 200, 300 servers and then try to eliminate them. And there was like no documentation about what they were. There was no tags. It was just a whole bunch of black boxes. And this is like pretty early on in my career. And the way that they were creating those was just like manually in the console. They just click a button, spin it up, and then somebody would go into it, run a whole bunch of commands. Nobody had those written down. And so the
It's
idea that
crazy. I
now
cannot
it's like
imagine that.
it was a whole thing. It took about 8 months for me to finally
Wow.
get that project wrapped up
Damn.
and then out of there. But it was like it was that was what it was previously, right? Like the
Yeah.
idea previous to the infrastructure as code, you just run some commands offhandedly, and then hopefully that still keeps working into the future, which we know it won't. And then yeah, you have all these downstream problems. So that's cool that y'all went after the idea of like, don't mess with operations, stay focused on development. Because y'all didn't already have, it sounds like, existing operations people at the company. Do you think that that helped accelerate the usage of serverless?
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah, because otherwise, maybe they would try to convince us that Kubernetes is better for us. I don't know.
Okay. Have you had like any conversations around that, like Kubernetes versus serverless? And I personally, I can't imagine like the idea from going from serverless to Kubernetes, but I'm not sure what your experience has been.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure whether I had some serious conversation with anybody about that, but I was thinking about it, and I think that basically we can say that thanks to Kubernetes, we can have serverless, right? So I think it definitely has its use. And but if I can choose, I would definitely prefer serverless because I have less costs in terms of operations and in terms of development because it's much more effective and efficient. So definitely no hate going to Kubernetes.
Yeah, totally. I've had this conversation before around like the because we're building a lot of abstractions every single day. The crypto development space as well, like blockchain space, is also building tons and tons of abstractions. serverless, fully managed, lots of abstractions. When the way that you said the Kubernetes part there is it can almost enable serverless stuff. It's more maybe that lower level end of it. Is that how you would kind of describe it? Is like it has its place, but it's potentially more like the lower level infrastructure that supports all the abstractions above it?
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Okay, awesome. And then getting into some more stuff on this, it sounds like your team's scaling out at Purple Technology. Are y'all hiring currently? What type of work would somebody like working alongside you at Purple Technology? What would they work on?
Yeah, definitely. At Purple Technology, we are creating a software for forex trading brokers, which are global companies. It's like several of them, and basically, we are doing something like, let's say, internet banking, where people uh, through the web application through which people are wiring their money, they are managing them, etc. And we are also planning to build a React Native application, and basically, we are developing all that in TypeScript and, of course, serverless. And basically, we are based in Brno, so we would prefer people to be in Brno or at least to attend Brno like several times a month. But if there is some really good fit, we can have individual discussion with people. Yeah, so definitely, if anyone is interested in doing serverless and in fintech industry, let me know on the Twitter and we can sort it out.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll make sure to have that information posted everywhere as well. Y'all missed the picture that Philip posted earlier across social media. I think it was your setup, which was
Oh yeah.
pretty insane. What was the? It had like a big audio mixer. It looked like. Is that what that was?
Oh yeah, yeah. That is a big audio mixer, but the thing is that I have a friend who is DJ, and I told
Oh,
him, okay,
nice.
I need some stuff for podcast, and he said, okay, I have the things you need. So I said, okay, that's going to be perfect, and so far so good.
Yeah, amazing. I think you told me right before we started that you were working on it for a bit. Did it take a while to get set up with all that?
Yeah, he helped me to set everything up, and I just turned it on, and yeah, it seems to work fine with
Nice.
Mac.
Awesome. Awesome. And then yeah, and then getting into some of the stuff like what do you think about I've had conversations before around like learning in public, the idea that you learn something, you put it out there. It sounds like your internal docs are now becoming blog articles. How does that align with potentially how you operate? Do you follow that kind of mantra of when you learn something, try to put it out there in public and share it back to the community? What do you think about that?
Yeah, we would love to do that more than we do now. Of course, the thing is that all these stuff have lower priority than filling up the business requirements, right? Because we need to live off something. But we are definitely open to sharing more and contributing more to community. We are also planning to do some meetups here in Brno regarding AWS or serverless and stuff like that. And we definitely want to push more the blog articles, and because in order to be able to grow, we need more tooling and more like frameworks and these kind of stuff. And so far, it doesn't seem that there are any solutions out there. So we might need to also build it ourselves, and of course, we will make it open source.
Yeah, actually, too, I saw that question in your note as well. Is that you said I think that management of serverless applications forces us to solve this stuff ourselves because the community may not have solved it maybe that exact way yet. It sounds like those are product ideas that you're kind of like riffing right there. Is that something that y'all are trying to do as well over at Purple Technology? Is like build stuff for the open source or build stuff as like a separate rollout? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? How did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, we will definitely build some open source tools like under Purple Technology, and maybe even there might be some software as a service tooling coming up from us. Yeah, but we shall see about those. But definitely, everything we can, we will do open source, and we hope it will help community, and we will also try to make it as universal as is possible for everybody to use it. It's quite interesting that I also saw it in some discussion in AWS Community Builder Slack, that people were mentioning that there is sort of information vacuum about like building bigger serverless projects. And yeah, I think it's very sad, and we want to fix that. And also, what comes in hand with that is that the tooling is missing, so that's where we want to contribute.
Yeah, no, it's a really good thing. If I'm understanding it correctly, from my experience, it's like I think I saw you post on maybe LinkedIn about this as well, like the lots of like hello world type of content, but not a lot of more like deep things that require like advanced knowledge. And I've always struggled with this myself when it comes to like writing articles or making content. Is that I always feel like I have to kind of like cater to the newest person reading the content. And so it requires a lot of energy to explain the basic foundation concepts or to point those out or give that direction. And as you get more and more advanced in a specific topic, it becomes harder to make those links for the reader because it takes away from the main content. Is that kind of what you're describing there?
Yeah, sort of. I think it's obvious that first, to have the seniors, you need to have juniors, right? So it makes sense that there is a lot of basic serverless content for beginners. But I think it's becoming a time that we start producing some more advanced blog posts and content.
I completely agree. And then I saw something that you wrote recently about app sync subscriptions. I think it was things that maybe you learned about app sync subscriptions when using it. When it comes to building APIs now, are you more in the app sync camp or an API gateway, or do you still kind of mix both together?
Yeah, basically we are mixing both, but for the applications, mainly we are using AppSync because we think that GraphQL is much better than REST itself. But of course, in some cases, we are using REST, but maybe I would call it rather HTTP endpoints because we are not really using it as a REST as it should be, but just as an endpoints. So yeah, we are mixing both, but what we can, we are putting to AppSync, definitely.
Awesome. What are your thoughts on Eventbridge?
Oh yeah, I love that. When we saw that it's rolling out, we were amazed and excited because we have a lot of use cases for that. A lot of things are happening inside our systems, and a lot of other systems would like to react to it. And Eventbridge is exactly what we were missing there. We were trying to substitute it with SNS, but Eventbridge is really what we were looking for. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, we've started using that on a lot of our projects as well at Serverless Guru across clients. It's been very interesting to see the kind of maturity there of thinking through like you have all these events coming through and like how do you filter them and make sure that there's like a centralized way to control it where it's not just like you know all over the place. Something that's been happening recently, maturity requires additional features being released, things like that. Has it been more difficult using something like Lambda now with like the maybe the best practice for, let's say, error handling or something like just speaking about like error triggers that are happening now on Lambda or potentially like dead letter queues through like SQS. Like it seems like they've extended the functionality with like Lambda layers, Lambda extensions, all that stuff. But is it harder to find like a solid path through it, like a best practice for it, or do you think that that's just natural and like there's a lot of new features that are rolling out for AWS Lambda and other services like that. They to a large degree for a long time there was only maybe like one or two ways to do something and now it seems like there's three or four or five different ways to do something. Are you struggling with that or have you seen other people struggling with that? Do you have any advice around that specific scenario?
Yeah, well, I think it's good to give people more choices how to do stuff. But it might be good to have some let's say, framework which will set some rules for the themes. Because if you are designing something, some more options might be better for you, so you can pick better. But when you are building something bigger inside a team, choosing a different option every time different person does the task can create a mess. So maybe this could be handled on some another layer or something like that, or maybe better documentation from AWS regarding the features. I don't know, but I don't really mind all these new features, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like the way that you just kind of said that reminds me of what we were just talking about earlier with those like 200 black box servers, and you didn't know how people manually did it, and you didn't know what commands they ran, and you're trying to just like almost search through this dirt, trying to find like if there's something there that you can use. And it's not exactly the same because we still do have infrastructure as code, but I do like the idea of what you just kind of described around almost like a management tool where you have abstractions over all of these abstractions we're already using just to make it easier for people to make the right choice for the job. And if, obviously AWS has to document and create services that support, hundreds of thousands of use cases, but potentially at a specific company, they only have to, account for 5 or 10 different use cases.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
makes sense. Awesome. And then something around the future. What do you see as the future in the space? The next, like, do you think that CDK is going to keep getting adoption? Do you think that we're going to move away from stuff towards CDK, TypeScript, Eventbridge? What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, CDK really caught my attention since we are developing everything in TypeScript. And the thing is that I'm not sure whether it's good or bad to write an infrastructure in a traditional programming language. That's a question which we will just have to try, and then we will have the experience and we will see. And but I think the future might be in creating a tighter interconnection between infrastructure and infrastructure definition and the source code itself. So, for example, when you want to write into some DynamoDB table, the framework or whatever it would be would automatically pass the reference through the environment variable through CloudFormation and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we shall see some interesting stuff coming up from CDK, especially after there is this. I'm not sure how it's called, the integration which brings CDK into serverless framework. That will make it really easy for people to adopt CDK.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. One thing that you said there was, I believe, tighter integration between infrastructures, code, and the code, I guess, itself. And it's a really good point, and it's something that I've thought about as well, and I'm sure a lot of people have thought about. Like when it comes to, let's say, like a DynamoDB stream where you have a Lambda attached to it, there's only a couple of things that event's going to do or pass, and then it's a lot of the same type of logic, like filter the event, do something, send it somewhere else, right? And that both the front side of that business logic and the back side of that business logic is not unique to the company or to the use case. Yeah, so that would be cool if people started thinking more about that, and potentially additional tooling and stuff was built around both understanding how the infrastructure is code and the standards that have been set by the cloud providers play into the overall application development to make that process easier.
Yeah. Also,
That'd
the
be
thing
cool.
is that when developers say, "Okay, I want to write to a DynamoDB table," but then they come to me and I need to explain, "Okay, so you need to update it here and here and here and there," and then it starts to be quite messy. Yeah, it would be nice to have tighter interconnection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess we've seen a lot more picking up and adoption wise is TypeScript. And at first we didn't have that at Serverless Guru, and it's gained a lot in the past like 6 months, 8 months, year or so. How do you view because it sounds like you're very heavily into TypeScript, and so how do you view that transition towards TypeScript? And do you think that that's kind of just the overall future? What kind of benefits? And I guess could you give us like a pro and con of if people should be using TypeScript for serverless?
Yeah, well, if you want to build a bigger project, Definitely, TypeScript is a good choice because you get the type safety, static type checking, and all this kind of stuff. And of course, it requires you to write the types and all this kind of stuff. So for someone who like doesn't want to mess with all these features, let's say of TypeScript, JavaScript might be better. But me personally, I would never go back to JavaScript. What's a bit funny, what I see there is like, in a way, we've created the Java again, or something like that. You know that back then when the JavaScript was booming, everybody was saying, okay, Java is ugly, it's very complex, all the types and those kind of stuff, and like, okay, let's use JavaScript because it's easy and in a few lines of code you get what you want. But when we were starting to build a bigger and bigger and bigger project, we started to figure out that okay, well, we need the types because otherwise we are lost, and every change we make, we are risking that everything will fall down. So yeah, I see the wisdom of the past, why, for example, Java was so popular, and I think we are getting something similar back again. But I guess that's in the industry in general with like functional programming and all this stuff. So yeah, we shall see what comes up next.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to say that. That it's I haven't heard someone say that before, but yeah, it definitely feels like sometimes we're re-entering like Java days. That's how I learned to program was on Java, and then jumping to JavaScript is like the Wild West, and then now it's like all right, guardrails. Like it's like I don't want to be in this box. I want to do whatever I want. It's like I have to follow the specific structure. And I guess like one thing that popped in my head there was, do you think that TypeScript fits better for like very well-defined projects? Is there ever times where you're trying to build like a proof of concept, or maybe you don't fully understand the thing that you're trying to do, but you're going through that creative process of understanding it? In that case, would you be using something like JavaScript, or would you still opt for TypeScript in those cases?
Well, personally, I think it fits for all the projects because since you have the type safety and the static type checking, it makes your head lighter because you don't need to think about all that stuff. So I would definitely use it for a project of any size because I mean you can always use any, right? And on those places where you are sure that okay, this will be definitely returning string in all the cases, you just put it there and you are safe there, and then you can just fix the rest of the code. So I would definitely go only for TypeScript.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because it's like it's more than purely, like the defining the types. There's also other built-in functionality that comes along with it that, as you were mentioning, which allows you potentially to debug faster or avoid debugging in some cases. And like I like that way that you said it. It keeps your head light, and that's a really important part of having almost like that serverless mindset of like let's offload the responsibility somewhere else so we can focus on the core things that matter to the product. So that's awesome. And yeah, like as we're starting to get to a point to wrap up here, are there any topics that maybe we didn't talk about already that maybe you want to bring up yourself that we could dive into?
Well, for example, one thing could be that I was quite surprised, like how many community builders are in US compared to Europe. So I think we need to focus on evangelization here in Europe. And other than that, I think we've been through everything.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, it's cool. I've seen that the community, I think it's AWS Heroes, the last segment of people, I believe, were like one person in the US, and then everyone else was from a different country or location. That's the way that I understood it from their blog article that they released where they showed the profiles. I'm not sure if there was additional people that maybe weren't in that, but at least what they highlighted, it seemed like AWS is also thinking about that. Like, how do we spread that across the entire
Yeah,
world
I think with
versus,
Heroes is much
yeah.
better. Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And then for those who don't know the Community Builder program, what kind of benefits do you get out of being involved in that community?
Yeah, first of all, we get everyone gets to Slack where we can discuss basically everything we have on mind regarding AWS. There are also experts from AWS, so you can discuss it also with them and with the rest of the community. There's one important benefit. Other important benefit is that we get to see for example, the products which might not have been yet released, or that some features have not yet been released. Unfortunately, we cannot share those because they are under NDA. But it's very interesting to see like where it's going. And yeah, we get, for example, the vouchers for certifications. We get AWS credits, and yeah, stuff like that. And I think it's very awesome to be there. And I would recommend everybody to submit and try to participate.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely give the exact same advice. Definitely submit and get involved. It's an awesome community of people from all around the world, and hopefully more outside of the US coming up, which I'm sure AWS will hear this and they will listen to that feedback. And then you mentioned that Purple Technology around like blogs and meetups. And do you have anything personally or with Purple Technology that's coming up that you want to kind of promote to the audience?
Definitely, if there's anyone from Central Europe, some serverless expert, let us know. We would be interested in some cooperation. And other than that, I guess follow me on Twitter. I will be posting there our new open source software and our problems and issues and blog posts. And I will be definitely looking forward to your replies and to discussion there. So that's it from me.
All right. Awesome. Well, then let's wrap up and let's call that a podcast episode complete. Thanks for being on, Philip. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. To those listening, this has been the Talking Serverless podcast with Ryan Jones. If you like our show and want to learn more, check out talkingserverless.io, or you can leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Podcast if you found this content valuable. And of course, join us next time as we sit down with another fantastic guest.